warm welcome to Sail the World, coming to you this week from the Royal Southern Yacht Club overlooking the River Hamble.
It's back to business for the Whitbred cruise. They're all set to leave Punta del Este, Uruguay on the penultimate leg of this classic 32,000-mile race.
Since leaving Southampton in September, the 14 yachts have already endured flat calms and raging storms. Crews have sweltered in the heat, shivered in the cold. They've experienced the thrill of surfing in the Southern Ocean and fear when dodging icebergs. One boat nearly sunk. Few have come this far unscathed. It's been a grueling 23,000 miles. Now it's on to Fort Lauderdale in Florida before the final sprint home.
The good news is that the French Maxi La Poste is carrying on despite threatening to withdraw from the race. It follows the unsavoury incident in which 4 crewmen were arrested and accused of assault.
The La Poste management gave the last-minute go-ahead despite 2 crew and 2 of the shore team remaining in a Uruguayan jail. The yacht will set sail understaffed, just 11 men on board, in a show of solidarity with their detained colleagues. The 4 were arrested and held in police custody after allegedly tying up and beating a burglar who'd broken into their luxury crew house in Punta del Este. The case has yet to be heard. Meanwhile, the fleet will depart without them. Leg 5 takes the yachts 5,500 miles. Up the coasts of Uruguay and Brazil, across the equator into the Northern Hemisphere, and through the windless zone known as the Doldrums. It's sunshine sailing all the way, tasting the Caribbean before finishing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A very different leg tactically to the last stage.
It all happens a little bit more in slow motion. You know, boats can't zip from one side to the other at quite the same speed that they can in the Southern Ocean. The Doldrums, normally because we're so far west, the band is very narrow. We're not necessarily affected by them all that much. But there's all the way up this coast and then into the Caribbean, there's little tricks all the way.
The stretch of sailing up the coast here is sort of 2,000 miles. And inshore is along the coast is the shortest route, but offshore there's typically more wind, so you've got to judge how far off you go. If you go too far, you sail too many miles. If you stay too close, then you probably run out of wind. But that's the sort of typical situation. But anything can happen. Boat speed is very important, obviously, and you've got to have a good boat in light airs, I think.
As skipper of Rothmans in the last Whitbred, Laurie took a flyer and went 200 miles further east than the others. He was rewarded with a 100-mile lead. Now, with Intrum Justitia lying second in the Whitbred 60 class, 14 hours behind Tokyo, is Britain's top skipper tempted to do the same again and hopefully put a dent in Chris Dixon's overall lead?
Our tactics have always been to win the leg. I think it's dangerous to say we've got to make up 5 or 6 hours, because if you start doing that, you can, just end up half a day behind or a day behind. And, Tokyo's hard enough to beat, never mind take 5 or 6 hours out of. So we'll be happy just to beat him, and if we beat him, I think it will be several hours. And then that sets it up maybe for the last leg, and we may take a few more risks then.
We're going out to sail our own race, and at the same time, there's a couple of boats we do want to keep a tactical eye on. We may adjust our game plan a little, depending on where they go, but we're out to sail our boat, sail our own race, and on attack to see if we can build on that 14 hours.
Winston can't hope to catch Tokyo. They're 1.5 days behind. The team's last bit of relaxation in Uruguay was a visit to a gaucho ranch. No Dennis Conner this leg, which must have pleased the horses at least. After a disappointing Southern Ocean stage, the crew are back in the saddle, determined to post a good result.
We've had our ups and downs on the race, that's for sure, but I think the boat is capable of winning, and it's just the way the cookie crumbles, really. And but we're going to give it our best shot and see if we can pull it off.
Grant Dalton's New Zealand Endeavour is favourite to be first into Lauderdale. Having built up a 20-hour lead in the maxi class, Dalton wants line honours in the remaining 2 legs. The fleet should take around 23 days to complete the 5,500 miles from Punta del Este to Florida.
For Heineken and Dolphin, there's little chance of winning this race. They're 10 and 12 days behind the leaders. But these crews have had to overcome tremendous problems along the way, and their grit and determination is unfaltering. Sally Simmons reports.
I'm going to hit out front starboard.
If it can go wrong on Dolphin and Youth, it has. The rudder, sails, deck fittings, then the keel. And repairs in Montevideo, Uruguay are a mammoth task and a demoralising one.
It's a very slow process, quite a few problems in getting the boat out. Not enjoying this place too much, but we're all getting on, so have a good laugh together.
I mean, surprisingly, they're very happy. You know, they get on with their job and they'll look forward to the next leg. They want to get the boat ready, they want to carry on racing, and they want to show everybody what they can do on the next leg.
Heineken too have been short-changed when it comes to luck. They made it through crew changes and being very underfunded at the start, only to lose a third of their rudder in the last leg. They also made the long journey up to Montevideo to remove the mast and then fix the rudder on their boat. They were delighted when they got there to see the Dolphin lads on the quayside, ready to lend a helping hand.
The biggest problem here is just logistics of getting the boat up. We expected an easy stopover, and instead we had to bring the boat up here. It's a full day up. It's a full day to get the boat out of the water, the rig out of the boat. It's extremely slow. It takes 9 people to do one job, and we have to look forward to that, putting the boat back in. So 4 days of our time is wasted pretty much just moving the boat.
Another gloomy morning in Montevideo. This morning we came down to find boat rigs thrown to the ground last night in the breeze. We could have lost all the rig electronics as the rig has come smashing down to the ground.
They may be down and dejected, but disaster forces a crew to bond together remarkably quickly.
And the team side of things had to be built up as we went, which obviously in an ideal situation you'd have done that, you know, a long time before the start of the race. But now, you know, yeah, we all know each other. That's a big start. So yeah, and it is far more of a team now, which is a really big help.
Ashore, they help each other, but once they cross the start line, they'll be fighting all the way. The girls on Heineken think they could have the edge over the boys this time, better suited to the lighter conditions.
We've gone through the really hard, heavy weather stuff, which we have shown not to be the absolute best at. We're a lot better in light airs, and of course this is hopefully what we get in the next few weeks. Light airs, doldrums, equator, and a bit of sunshine, which is even better.
With a much heavier boat, Dolphin's tactics will have to be radical.
You know, we've come out of the Southern Ocean now, and we're back into much lighter and warmer conditions, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to sailing in warm conditions again. The leg doesn't perhaps suit the boat as ideally as the breezy legs, but we've worked a lot on our sail inventories and we feel that the boat is reasonably up to speed. We're really looking forward to it.
2 days behind the girls and 2 legs to go. The pressure's on.
After the break, all the action of the start of leg 5 as the yacht set sail for Florida. Welcome back. Well, the crews have packed their lightweight sails ready for 5,500 miles of fickle winds and sweltering heat. Let's now join Gareth and Tracy Edwards for the start of leg 5.
Libertad, the Spanish for freedom, a show of support by La Poste for their jailed teammates. As Eric Taboulet and his crew prepare to leave, their thoughts are especially with Florent Rupert, who's celebrating his 26th birthday in a police cell.
And Laurie Smith's thoughts will probably be today about taking a few more hours out of that 14-hour lead that Tokyo has over them. They'll really want to eat away at that this leg.
Let's recap then on the overall positions after 4 legs. New Zealand Endeavour has a 2-hour advantage over the leading Whitbred 60 Tokyo. Intram's the next boat, as you say, 14 hours behind. In the bottom half of the fleet, Dolphin has a full 2 days to make up if they're to finish ahead of the women on Heineken.
Uruguay Naturals seen here, of course, leaving their home port, and they'll be guaranteed of a lot of support today on their start. And there is the start gun for the 5th leg of the Whitbred Round the World race.
The conditions very light indeed, just 5 or 6 knots. The yachts will now make their way towards the first mark about 3.5 miles away at Punta Ballena.
The wind is so light and variable at this point. It's a shame they can't put their spinnakers up. Hopefully if the wind shifts around they'll be able to. A lot of floaters and drifters that we can see here. The Maxes of course are going to love this start. Light winds mean that they'll be pulling ahead of the Whitbred 60s.
Yes, just the weather Grant Dalton on New Zealand Endeavour must have been praying for.
Now, very unusually, this is a starting fleet of 12 yachts. 2 of the yachts, the Ukrainian entries, Odessa and Hetman, are actually being held up in port at the moment. Not only are they waiting for 2 crew members to arrive from the airport, but also some radio equipment.
On board Dolphin in Youth, the British boat has shown good performance in heavy weather, but is yet to excel in the lighter airs.
Yamaha was first across the start line, but even here we can see that she's being overhauled by New Zealand Endeavour. Both boats have brand new suits of sails for this leg.
Presumably the sails they used in the last leg across the Southern Ocean are now redundant.
That's right, yes, they'll be replaced by lighter sails and also fewer of them, not so many eventualities where they'll be breaking sails, so they won't have to replace them, of course, so often.
All the yachts reducing weight overall. Skipper Grant Dalton had a long chat with his crew just to let them know what's in store.
Really, this is a leg where the weather gets light, where it's easy to lose your concentration, where you sort of laze around on the rail working on your suntanner. But if you're not careful and to just keep with the plot, we're an hour 56 in front. We want to extend it. We need a cushion for the next leg when we could pull back a bit if we had to. They're ready. I could see it in their eyes this morning.
That's right, of course everyone remembers the dangers of the Southern Ocean, but the danger of this leg is really that you don't concentrate because the winds are so light and variable. They've got a lot of headwinds to look forward to and maybe a very frustrating next couple of days.
Light winds when we're sailing into it means the fleet will split. As we tack up wind, we could end up with a fleet over hundreds of miles across the ocean. So there'll be a little bit of nervousness for a few days while we wonder which way the wind will eventually come, but it'll all settle down and I'm sure it'll be fine.
We were talking earlier, Tracy, about saving weight. Well, Laurie Smith on interim Justicia has cut his crew to 10 men and put them all on a diet for this leg. Laurie's been up to his old tricks in recent weeks, criticising Kiwi skippers, and that's provoked some strong reactions.
Maybe they're taking themselves a bit too seriously, you know. I heard they get a bit upset when I say a few things, but basically, you know, the British press and the people, they're fed up of listening about I tacked here and he tacked there and we got a new sail. I mean, who the hell's interested in that? You know, they're more interested in a bit of aggro maybe, and if it upsets them, it's fantastic.
Well, that's one way of putting it, and here's the recipient of some of those wind-ups from Laurie Smith. And we can see the 3 Maxis here. It looks like New Zealand Endeavour is still out in front, with Merit following very closely behind. And I've just noticed that New Zealand Endeavour has in fact got a red protest flag out now. I'm not quite sure what that's for. Merit following very closely behind. I don't know if they've been involved in something.
Well, right at the back of the fleet, Uruguay Natural. Surprise, surprise. But the crew won't be too worried about that. They're getting a fantastic send-off as the yacht heads across the Bay of Maldonado towards that first turning mark at Punta Ballena.
Yes, heading very slowly towards that first turning mark. They're taking up to, it looks like about 20 minutes so far to reach the mark. New Zealand Endeavour still in the lead. It looks like she's going to go around the mark first, as we can see a huge gap here between the 3 Maxes and the first Whitbred 60. Merit still well up with New Zealand Endeavour. Of course, the light winds still favouring these yachts, but all going very slowly. And Tokyo is, I think, the front of the Whitbred 60s. It looks like Winston is quite close behind, but we know that there's a couple of other Whitbred 60s around there. New Zealand Endeavour taking her sails down and getting ready to go close onto the wind as she rounds this mark.
Before heading out of the River Plate and north up the coast of South America, the yachts have one more turning mark about 5 miles away back in Punta del Este. But there's New Zealand Endeavour going around the Heineken buoy at the very head of the Whitbred fleet.
And it's taken them nearly half an hour to get to this mark, and 1 minute behind New Zealand Endeavour we have Merit rounding the mark. La Poste rolling in their staysail, and they're about, well, they're probably about 10 seconds behind Merit here, so all the maxes still very close.
La Poste handicapped with only 11 crewmen, but they'll be doubly determined to do well.
The first Whitbred 60 to reach the buoy is Tokyo, and they're taking their drifter down here. They've got a headsail up. They'll be rounding the buoy and going close onto the wind. And here we see Galicia coming up to the mark with Winston and Yamaha. It looks like there's a bit of a battle going on as to who's going to be first round the mark. It's going to be Yamaha, and we really can see here Winston and Galicia both heading for the mark. It looks like Galicia's going to go round first. Yes, she's just sliced in front of Winston, and Winston will be following her closely round.
Winston without skipper Dennis Connor on board yet again. Perhaps he's given up the ghost after their poor performance in the last leg.
Well, it's hardly jostling for position here, but here's Interim Justicia drifting towards the mark. The wind is so light, and it looks like she's about a full 3 minutes behind Tokyo. Now, considering the good starts that Interim has had with Laurie Smith at the helm, this is a long way behind, and they won't be happy with that.
The 9th yacht to round the turning mark is the women's 60 Heineken. It's an important leg for American skipper Dawn Riley. She'll be hoping for a great reception in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
I think there will be, and it'll be nice to have that spread around all of the Americans in the fleet, because in the other ports you kind of, it's not your home. This will be home, and it's good. There's more and more American interest in the race, and I hope we can expand on that.
And of course, the last time Dawn sailed into Fort Lauderdale, she was on Maiden, and they gave us a spectacular welcome, really made us feel at home. And going round the mark, Dolphin and Youth with Brooksfield.
At the moment we have about 8 knots, and she's coming in from the southeast, and all is well. We hope for a good leg for us, and we might see us do something fairly radical as time goes on, depending on the weather.
Yes, the lads could do with a bit of good luck. Back with the leaders, Endeavour's involved in a tacking duel with Merit Cup. There's going to be a lot of that between Maxis and 60s over the next few days.
And the Whitbred fleet heads away from Uruguay and towards Fort Lauderdale. And let's hope for a bit more breeze for them to give them a bit more of an exciting leg than the start.
News now of Enza, and the giant catamaran has just set a new record for sailing around the world non-stop. Peter Blake and Robin Knox-Johnson completed their 26,000-mile journey in less than 80 days.
Enza picked her way through the calms of the doldrums, setting their spinnaker for the first time in many weeks. Time for routine maintenance to sails that are suffering from the wear and tear of 40 days in the South Atlantic Ocean storms and seas. A welcome rain squall gives the opportunity to take a shower and wash hair. Enza crossed her outward track, and at last the finish line at Brest in France comes into sight. But it's been a tough time in the Atlantic.
What we have to be careful of now is that we aren't foolish. We don't overdrive the boat. We look after the boat and ourselves. We make sure nothing breaks between here and the finish line.
And the weather had more in store. Ushant Lighthouse, the finish line, with storm-force winds gusting to 69 knots. Barring disaster, though, the Enza team were odds-on to beat the record.
We're now about 28 miles from the finish line, after some 26,500 miles. It's so close to the finish. Too early yet to get too overconfident about it. We've still got a force 7 wind out there. It's still occasionally gusting force 8 or 9. And the seas are still very, very large indeed. We're still at least 12 metres in height of sea out there. We've got warps out the back just to slow us down, because last night we took off down the front of a wave, buried the bows in, and this is how Peter got hurt before. So we said, no, enough is enough.
Despite ropes and chains to slow her down, Enza made over 10 knots towards the finish. Her French rival, Olivier de Kersasson, and the trimaran La Lyonnaise des Eaux du Metz still more than 900 miles behind. Victory in the duel now a matter of minutes away. With hardly any sail up at all, Peter Blake, winner of the last Whitbred, co-skipper Robin Knox-Johnston and the 6th crew nurse the tired catamaran and make their first landfall since the start 2.5 months ago. the very same island of Ushant. It lies at the westernmost tip of France, site of many a shipwreck, including the Imoco Cadiz. It forms the southern end of the line to the Lizard Point in Cornwall. Huge seas with a handkerchief of a sail do nothing to dampen the crew's spirits, looking forward to warm, dry beds and their first decent meal after their dried food diet for so long.
David, I have been bearing south now, over.
The lighthouse bears south, and Knox Johnson calls for a finish time.
Stand by. Stop.
Enza races non-stop around the world, just under 27,000 miles, in a new record time of 74 days, 22 hours, 17 minutes and 22 seconds, smashing the time set by Bruno Peyron in Commodore last year by some 4.5 days. First to greet her father, Sarah Jane Blake. Ed Danby's wife, Anki, joining thousands of people applauding their remarkable achievement.
We had good luck all the way for the first half. That was a lot of good luck. Terribly quick. Then we had bad luck, but we were still able to go quite well. I think any other boat's got to expect that same mix, and I think you probably need a bigger boat to beat it.
Who's ever finished a yacht race, towing hundreds of metres of warp, all your anchor chain, all your anchor warp tied up, no sail, unbelievable.
74 days and a bit, you happy with that?
I think you do it in 67. But it won't be me.
And Ender's record is likely to stand for a long time.
Congratulations to all the crew. Now, if you're planning on going sailing or you just need something to keep out the rain, stand by for our competition and a waterproof prize. But first, here are last week's winners, who each receive a copy of Peter Blake's book on sailing. Now, as the yachts head north to Florida, Laurie Smith on Interim Justitia will be intent on making up his time deficit on rival Chris Dixon on Tokyo. So this week's question is, how many hours is Interim behind Tokyo? Is it A, 4, B, 14 or C, 24? If you're right, you could win an offshore sailing jacket. It's fully lined, completely waterproof, and the collar and hood will protect you from the wildest weather. The number to ring is 0891 664444. That's also the number to ring to receive race news. And if you want to find out how to get into boating, call 0784 472222.
Join us again next week to find out who's made the early gains in Leg 5.
And we'll bring you all the stories from on board the yachts. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.